Once again, Bhagalpur Sahodaya welcomes all the online and offline participants in this training session. Today's topic is strengthening reading competency. The resource person of today is MS Richa, TGT of English from Happy Valley School. So before I started this session, I would like to call all the participant schools, those who are taking part in this very training session. Anand Ram Dandaniya Saraswati Vidya Mandir, Bhagalpur, Arya Mission Global School, Bhagalpur, Happy Valley School, Bhagalpur, Bal Bharati Vidyalaya, Nogachia, New Horizon School, Bhagalpur, Diksha International School, Bhagalpur, Techno Mission International School, Bhagalpur, Anand Public School, Sabor, Bhagalpur, Saraswati Vidya Mandir, Munger, Guru Kripa Academy, Kalgaon, Navyug Vidyalaya, Bhagalpur, St. Paul's Academy, Daryapur, Bhagalpur, Open Minds Bhagalpur School, Bhagalpur, New Era Public School, Munger, Gotham Public School, Pirpati, Himalayan Academy, Kalgaon, Ramakrishna Vidya Mandir High School, Ranuchak, Makandapur, Columbus English Academy, and Sutara Mehe Mission School. So, without being late, I would like to call Ms. Richa to start our very training session. So, Ms. Richa, please come over to the podium. Yes.
So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Richa, today's resource person, and we'll be discussing on the topic. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Richa, and today's resource person, and we will be discussing on the topic strengthening reading competency. So let us begin. What a better way to start a presentation than a beautiful quote by Margaret Fuller. Today a reader, tomorrow a leader. So what is reading basically? It is a cognitive process of decoding symbols to derive meaning from text, as in reading a book or reading in music. So it is basically a mental action. It is an action recording, trying to understand the text, trying to understand what is written, decoding the different symbols, what are written, what symbols are regarded to what are the letters written, and what words are associated, what the meanings are. That is what basically reading is. Reading skills refers to the specific abilities that enable a person to read with independence and interact with the message. The tips that helps to have a good reading skills are active reading and styles of reading. So if you have to increase your reading skills, the main thing that can be done is that we should develop some of the basic abilities that will help us to have a good reading session. And that can be good reading skills, like active reading, not a passive one, that 1 or 2 days activity. It should be something that goes on with us for a good amount of time. It is a continuous process. And the style of reading, what kind of style can be adopted? What are the different reading techniques that can be done to make our reading session even more happening and even more interesting? So components of reading, there are basically 3 components of reading: decoding, comprehension, and retention. Decoding is basically related to the decoding of the symbols, what symbols are related to which sound effect. Comprehension is the level of understanding that one can create by reading certain something. And retention is how much we can retain. That means how much we can keep with us for a short term time or for a longer duration of time. Whatever we can keep with us, whatever we can retain, these are the three components of reading. Now let us go through these components one by one. The first one is decoding refers to the process of translating a printed word into sound. Basically, if I say what decoding is, so if you will, if I say the letter L, letter L is formed in our mind. The picturization comes into our mind, and we know exactly what the speaker is saying. So that is what decoding does. Decoding refers to the process of translating a printed word into the sound. When we associate a printed word, whatever is written, together with the sound that they create, that is what decoding is. It has two skills. There are two skills in decoding. The first one is identification skill, and the second one is word attack skill. So what is identification skill? Identification skill is just what we have discussed right now. The one that identify which sound effects goes together with which letter, which sound effects goes together with which word, what is the pronunciation of what word, and how do we interpret different words, different letters together in a sentence. That is what identification skills are. And word attack skills are basically the context of which word is used in a sentence together with which word, what are their interrelation with each other. All that things together comes under word attack skills. Comprehension. So after decoding comes the comprehension. After we have decoded the letters, what the letters are, which sounds are associated with which letters, what are the words, what are the meanings of those words associated with those words, then comes the comprehension. And what is basically comprehension? It is defined as a level of understanding of a text message. This understanding comes from the interaction between the words that are written and how they trigger the knowledge outside the text message. So basically, comprehension relates to the understanding of the text that are written, understanding of the text that we develop after reading it. So if I will say it in a more simpler way, it can be said that when you read something, when we start reading something, there are things that are already in our mind from before related to that topic. We have certain knowledge about that particular topic from beforehand. So comprehension is basically how we can relate these methods or whatever we are reading right now to the prior knowledge we have, how these knowledge that we are gaining right now by reading can trigger the already present knowledge in our mind. And then how can we come to a conclusion and how can we derive a new set of information together with it and can come up with that, okay, this is the new thing we have learned, the development that has happened throughout the entire process. That is what comprehension is. So comprehension relies on a mastery of decoding. Children who struggle to decode find it difficult to understand and remember what has been read. Because their effort to grasp individual words are so exhausting, they have very little mental energy left for understanding. So what is comprehension relies on the mastery of decoding. So these three things that we have discussed, the components of reading, that is the first one, which was decoding, then came the comprehension and the retention. These are not simple components of reading. These are step-by-step process. The person who has mastered the skill of decoding, he or she will find it easier to comprehend something because he knows which letters are associated with which sound, which words are associated with which sound effect, what is their meaning, why are they used in relation to each other, and together it will come up with the entire meaning of the sentence. That, okay, this is the entire thing that the writer wants to convey to the listener or the reader. So the level of mastery that we have in decoding will determine the level of mastery that we will have in comprehension. The children that who struggle to decode will obviously find it difficult because just think about their mentality, first they will have to interpret the letter. Okay, this is L. So if I say the letter L, they have to interpret that this is the letter. Then comes together those letters together with the words that, okay, if I'm saying the word like, L-I-K-E, so if I'm reading the like word, then this is what it means. And then using that meaning of that particular word in the entire content, in the entire sentence, and then comprehending it with the entire passage that the person is reading. So if a reading takes so much effort for a student, then he or she will find it difficult to retain or to understand the thing at the very end. And the reason being is it is exhausting for them. It is exhausting while they were understanding the letters and the words only. And so they will find it really difficult towards the very end to understand what the entire thing was. Now comes retention. After recording, after comprehension, retention. Retention comes, same goes like it happened in comprehension. If we have decoded well, we will comprehend well. And if we have comprehended well, we can retain more. Retain is the condition of retaining or keeping something. It could be in a short-term memory or a long-term memory. How much we can retain back, whatever we have read, how much we can keep in our mind, how much will stay with us for a shorter duration of a time or a longer duration of time. Whatever stays with us, that is what retention is. The ability to retain, which relies heavily on the child's decoding proficiency and ability to comprehend what is read. So if you can decode, if you are a master of decoding, then you can automatically, your comprehension will increase. You can comprehend things better, in a better manner, because it is less exhausting for you. And then you can, if you understand things better, obviously we can keep it with ourselves for a longer duration of time. We know when we try to memorize something, mark something up, it stays for us for a long, shorter duration of time. But after some time, we tend to forget that thing. But if we kind of understand it, comprehend it well in our brain system, then it will stay with us for a longer duration of time. Now, traditional view of reading, that is bottom up model, and cognitive view of reading, top model down, the top down model. So basically, there are these two processes. First is traditional view. Reading is a passive activity. In traditional view of reading, it is a passive activity. We take a certain material, we take a certain book, we read it, we go through it, and we understand whatever is written in it, and we move forward. That is what it is. And cognitive view is the reading is a dynamic activity. That means it does not, it doesn't just stop while after reading it. It is kind of, when we try to interlink between what we have already read, or with the day-to-day life examples that we are having. If we read something and we try to relate it to something that, okay, this was when that happened, that situation happened, so this is something related to that. All that comes under cognitive view of reading. Readers have no control over the act of comprehending text. In a traditional view of reading, the readers who are reading the text, they don't have a lot of control over what they are understanding. They understand what is written there. So whatever is written there, they read it, they try to comprehend it, and they keep it take it inside themselves, and it is over. That is what the traditional view is. Reader make use of their previous knowledge to comprehend the text. As I discussed earlier, that basically in this, what happens, that the readers are the one who is a master. They take the in charge, they read the passage or whatever is in front of them, the material, whatever is in front of them, they read it, they comprehend it with what they have read earlier. They try to interlink it with a real life example, with the prior knowledge that they already have. They try to link it out. They try to understand things better, and then they move forward. Readers rely only on the formal features of language in the quest of making sense to the text. So in traditional view, whatever is written in the whatever language it is, the reader tends to take it in that way only. They don't think much. They don't try to search for more other ways to enhance their knowledge, to look into more further things. They see what is written there, they read it, they go through it, and that's the end. That, okay, I have gained something, finish. But in cognitive view of reading, the reader as well as the text are the heart of the reading process. The person, the readers, and the text that we are reading, we are the heart of this entire reading process. If the text, we cannot understand the text, we'll look for other measure to understand it, to think, understand things better. We'll try to relate it. We'll try to search for other measures, other processes that will help us to comprehend and understand things better. Comparison between the traditional reading and the online reading. So we have been doing this traditional reading and online reading for a long period of time. It's time that we understand what is the benefits and what are the demerits of it. So time consuming. First of all, traditional reading is very, very time consuming. You will have to take out a book, even if you find that certain knowledge, certain contents that you're reading is of not no use to you, you still have to read it before moving forward. That okay, I after I finish that, then I can go to something that will be more beneficial for me. And in online reading process, it is a fast paced, as we already know that in a online reading system, if something is not of our use, something is not according to what we need, we'll just skip it out and we'll move forward. So it is a bit of a fast paced process and less time consuming. Traditional lazy reading is less versatile, while online reading is more versatile. It is very clear if it is traditional reading, if we'll compare it with online reading, it will be less versatile. And the reason being, because in online reading, we can adapt different measures, right? Like certain word, if we cannot understand certain words, what are written there, we have the features, right? We can click those words, longer press on those words, and the meaning of the entire things comes up. And we can go through the meaning of those words first, those idioms first, before moving into the next process. So that is what makes online reading a little bit more fun experience and little bit more versatile, because it has more and more functions as compared to the traditional reading. Next, harder to understand when we are talking about traditional reading, because only content that we have in traditional reading is the one of the book or the content that we have in front of us. We cannot rely upon others. We cannot rely upon different things that we have. We only have the content, and we have to understand it through the content only. So it at times it becomes harder to understand, and we kind of miss the knowledge in between. And if we regard online reading, it is kind of easier to understand. The same reason being because if there is a content that we don't like, and that particular link, we can skip that link. There are so many options. We have options in it. We can move on to the second one, the third one, and we can click it and we can go move on forward. So it is easier to understand because it has it gives us the options to choose. Then the linear reading. If we are doing the traditional reading, it is very natural that it will be in a linear process. We'll have a book in front of us and we'll go through the pages slowly and gradually. We'll move forward, going through each and every pages and understanding the contents written in it. But if we are doing the online reading, it is a kind of a random reading. We all know, we are well acquainted with online reading. The technology has been with us for a lot of duration of time. And because of this COVID-19 situation, we have been more familiar with the technology nowadays. So we know it very, we are very familiar with this, that how random we can be. There are so many links in the sites available to us. We can click on whichever link we like, whichever link suits us best, and we can go through it. We can read forward. That is the benefit of random reading. See, like we say now that a coin has two sides. So if we are there are disadvantages of problems related to something, there has to be certain advantages with it as well. So the traditional reading, the advantage being that no power is needed. No power is needed in the case of traditional reading, because we will not have to we will not, it is a book system, it is a hard copy, we don't have to charge it, we don't have to do extra effort for it, no power is needed. We simply take out the book, we open the pages, we turn the pages, and we can go through the content. So no power is needed in case of a traditional reading. But when we look into the online reading, power is needed. Obviously, all the electronic gadgets that we are acquainted with right now, that we are familiar with right now, requires power, requires charging facilities, and that needs power. Next is satisfying. Mainly all the readers who actually love reading and are inspired by reading can relate to this more, that if you open a book and if you're going through a book and you're reading it, the time you finish it, that the time that you have the entire experience of the book, the mental picture that develops because of that entire reading process of the book, when you finish it, when you end it and you close the book, that satisfying feeling that you get, you'll not be able to attain the same satisfaction with any electronic gadgets. It has to be that satisfying feeling has to be there only through the traditional reading. To have a book in front of you, go through it page by page, understand it, and finally that, okay, this was the content of the entire book. This is something that I have learned from the entire thing. And this is something that gives me peace. It enhances my knowledge, that satisfaction. But when we are reading online reading, if we are doing an online reading, there are a certain loss of details. Like whatever was an advantage at the beginning, it can also be proved as a disadvantage at the end. For example, if we start reading something online and if we are going through it and we feel like, okay, this content is not good or not for my use, it is something that is will be used later on, but it is for time being, I don't require that knowledge. So what we do is we skip that part, right? And we move forward to whatever content is important to us. So in that process, it may be that the details are lost, because whenever a writer writes a book, even when for time being when we are reading it, we can feel like, okay, this content is not important. But when we reach the end, we'll understand why the writer wanted us to go through that certain thing, because of the essence that it creates through the entire process. So that details is lost when we are doing the online reading. Now, factors influencing acquisition of reading abilities. What are the factors that influence our reading abilities? The first one is intelligence. Obviously, if we are talking about reading, it has to do something with our intelligence. If we are well acquainted with the vocabularies, if we are well acquainted with different kinds of words that are being used, we will obviously find it more easier to read and retain the knowledge. Next comes motivation. Motivation, how well we are motivated, because reading is a kind of a mental exercise, and you don't want to exercise all the time. You need sometimes you all want to give up. So that time you will need a motivation, something that will motivate you to go on, to continue, to not to give up. And that is what it becomes one of the factors for having a good reading system. Home background. As we have been listening from the very beginning, that our learning starts from our very home. Our very home proves to be the building blocks of our life. So the background of our home, how the background in the sense, what are the ambience, the atmosphere that we have at home, that whether it is something that will assist us in reading or will motivate us in reading or not, or whether it is something that will take our concentration away or divert us from this reading process. So that also plays a very important role in deciding what kind of a reading habits we'll have. Next, teaching strategies. Whatever we teach our students, however, how we are with our student, that will also determine that whether our our students will be interested in reading or not. First comes the vocabulary. If we make sure that our students are well acquainted with most of the words and are familiar with all the certain words, they will find it, obviously they will find it kind of easier to comprehend things, easier to read, and they will be more interested, motivated in reading, rather than the students who even find to interpret the words, find it difficult to interpret that words. Obviously, the person having more vocabulary will feel more motivated. Next comes comprehension, how well we make our students related to the comprehension, how well we make them understand that what the meaning are, what are their understanding. That all also becomes a teaching strategies. Literary appreciation. So I think all the English teachers will relate to this more. If we are well acquainted with the different literary devices that are used in different reading sections, then we will try to see things in a very different way. For example, if we are going through a story or if we are going through a different content, we are reading it right. It has a superficial or a one meaning that can be seen very easily. But if we know different literary devices, anything that enhances the beauty of the writers, that will make us to see that particular content in a different light. So if we are well acquainted with these literary devices, we'll be more will be able to understand things in a better way. So if our students are also well aware and well acquainted with those devices, they will find it even more interesting to go through that reading process entirely. Study skills, so the whatever study skills we put in our children's, that also determine whether they will have a better reading experience or not. Attitude of towards parents. What are the attitude of our parents towards reading? Are they creating an atmosphere at home which is motivating to the students to read more, or are they creating a kind of an atmosphere where the children are not mentally healthy, or they cannot adjust nicely, or they feel like reading is not that essential? So that also proves to be a building block, because the parents are the first teachers of the children, right? They are the one who are considered as the first teachers, and if they try to teach something to their child, they will understand those things in a better way. So their attitude matters a lot. What are their attitude towards this reading process? Next, siblings. Because see, if we have a certain group, if we have siblings, or we have friends, peers with us, together with us, if we have if we do something, anything, if we do it together in a group, it always doubles are the fun. So if we have siblings who also enjoys reading together with us, or the friends who also enjoys this exercise together with us, what will happen? We will tend to be motivated more. We will have double the fun. The fun will be increased, accelerated double, and we'll enjoy the entire process more. So siblings or the peers attitude towards the reading also affects the entire, it's also a factor of influencing a reading ability. Next, teachers. Teachers can never be omitted. They are the one who make the students understand why reading is important. If we can inculcate in them why is reading such an essential part of our life, why we need it in a day-to-day basis rather than just for 1 or 2 days, it will make a difference. And that is why the attitude of teachers towards the reading is also one of the factors. Motor ocular discrimination. It is something that is related to our concentration, the way that our eyes works, when we are reading, whether we are concentrated or not, whether the surrounding affects us, or the surroundings what affects us. All these are also factors in having a good reading experience altogether. Visual discrimination, that is something the ability that will help us to detect the difference, or classify the different objects or symbols, or the sound that will go on with the symbol, the words, the pronunciation, everything that comes in the under the visual discrimination, and that becomes a factor influencing reading ability. Next comes auditory discrimination. That is something related to our senses, to recognize and compare and distinguish between separate sounds. Whatever the sounds are, whatever it is, that is what we hear. It is related to that. Whatever we hear, whatever we understand by the sound of the words, of the sentence, the content of it, that is also a factor in affecting or influencing reading skills. Next comes the language facilities. Obviously, if we are well acquainted with whatever language we are using, or whatever language we are reading in, then the interest or we will be more motivated to read, rather than in a language that we feel hard to understand. So first of all, if we want to understand things better, read better, we have to be well acquainted with the basic things that we are reading in. Obviously, next will come the interest. If we have some interest in something, whatever we like, if we are doing something that we really like, and we have interest in, it is going to play a factor. It is going to determine whether we will enjoy that whatever we are doing or not. So same goes with the reading as well. If we are interested in reading, if we are a lover of reading, and if we love to read, so that will prove to be a factor, and we will kind of like to read more and more, rather than a person who are less interested in this particular thing. Now, required skills in reading. What are the skills that we will require in going through this reading process? Skills related to the eye movement. Concentration, how well we can concentrate. When we are reading something, how well we can only focus on that thing and keep the atmosphere aside, keep the little things that are disturbing us aside, and can only concentrate on that, like a like our eye movement. If we can control that, that is one of the skills that is required in reading. Abilities related to visual discrimination. So how we can determine what are the words, how easily we can read the words, how easily we can understand it. All these are required skills. We have to have that in order to have a best experience of reading. Association skills. So it is very important to have association skill. Association skills is basically how well you can associate things with what you are reading right now. For example, whatever content you are reading right now, you must be having a prior knowledge of that. So how you can relate to that, or how you can relate it to the real life examples, that association skills are very essential, because these association skills helps us to retain things for a longer duration of time. The more we are able to associate it with our day-to-day activities, the more it stays with us. Because rather than just reading something, things that we really experience stays with us for a longer duration of our time, rather than the one that we have just read or gone through it. So that is what association skill is. Interpretation abilities. So interpretation abilities is related to understanding or comprehending how well we understand things. The more we understand, the better we can retain it. So it is a must or a required skill when we are talking about reading. Why is reading important? Why do we need reading at the first place? Reading is a fundamental to function in today's society. Today's society is a fast-moving society. If we have to survive in this kind of a society, it is very important that we keep up with the knowledge, the day-to-day knowledge that we should have. So in order to have that day-to-day knowledge, to keep up with the changing society every now and then, it is very essential that we make it a habit of reading. Reading or a habit should be inculcated within us. Reading is a vital skill in finding a job. Obviously, the more we read, the more knowledgeable we will be. And when we are finding a good job, obviously the person who is hiring will always look for a knowledgeable person. So whenever we are having a good skill, it will always be beneficial. It will prove beneficial for us for a longer duration of a time. Reading is important because it develops our mind. Reading is something that develops our mind because it is a mental exercise that we do while we read. We have been taught from the very beginning that how exercise is very important for our body. In the same way, reading is that exercise that develops our mind, and it is very important for our mind as well. Reading helps us to discover new things. Needless to say, the more we read, the more knowledgeable we become, because knowledge has no bounds. The knowledge is in abundance. The more we can get it, the less it will be. So the more we read, the more knowledgeable we will become, and we'll discover new things that we were not well aware of earlier before we started reading the contents. Reading develops the imagination. So reading develops the imagination, the creativity. When we don't read, we are we have a little knowledge about something. If we don't read, our knowledge will be within those limits only. It will not go beyond that. So if we want to enhance our knowledge, if we want that our knowledge grows and we become a creative person, it is essential that we read more. The more we will look for things, the more we will pay attention to different things that we are reading. And the more we will be acquainted with those things, the imagination power will develop, and we will be a little bit more of a creative person. Reading develops the creative side of a people. So reading basically develops it is almost the same point as earlier, that it develops the creative side of a people, because as we read more, the more creativity we will have, and we can show that creative side to the people, that okay, we have this side also, because we are knowledgeable in that field as well. We have read, we have acquired knowledge, and whenever the time will come, I can show that I am creative or I am knowledgeable in that field as well. Reading is fundamental in developing a good self-image. So it is very important that we see ourselves in a good light, because that will help us to have a good self-confidence. And when we don't read, we depend upon the knowledge that the others are giving us, the opinions that others have. Whatever they will say us, we'll think that, okay, they are more knowledgeable, maybe they are right. And we try to, we kind of try to, tend to accept those things. But when we read more, we will know what is right and wrong. We will be able to form our own opinion, and we will be able to differentiate between right and wrong through our own opinion, our own mentality. So that is what reading does. It makes us confident. It's confident. It builds up our confidence and helps us to have a good self-image. And that helps us to build up a good self-confidence or self-esteem. Good reading skills, especially in phonies, reading programs improve spelling. Needless to say, the more we read, the more we are familiar with the words, the more we are familiar with how they are pronounced, and it will overall be help us in improving our spelling skills as well. Reading helps to expand vocabulary. So if we are reading something, and if there is something that we don't understand, we cannot just move forward and think that, okay, we have understood that. If we really love reading and we understand the essence of reading, what we'll do is, when we find a difficult word, we'll go back, we'll understand that word, and then we will understand the entire sentence really in context with that word that we were not able to understand. And then we'll understand the entire meaning of the entire sentence, and then we will move forward. And when we take this exercise, this entire exercise of understanding a certain words, then what will happen? That particular word will stay with us for a little longer duration of time. And if we tend to practice it or use that particular word in our day-to-day life, it will be even more beneficial, because it will now stay with us in our memory for a longer duration of time. And as a result, our vocabulary will increase. That is what reading does. Only by reading can we be armed in the never-ending life and death struggle. So only reading is the weapon that can make us so knowledgeable that in this fast-moving era, we can survive in this fast-moving era. In whatever line you are, in whatever field you are, if you have this day-to-day habit of reading, it will surely benefit you in a way that you will be able to survive for a longer duration of time in whichever field you are. So it is the only weapon that will help us to fight this war of life and stay in this for a long run. Through reading, one gets to know different perspective of life. So as I told you earlier also, it is because of the reading that we develop our own knowledge, we develop self-confidence, and we can see things the way we want to see it, because we can form our own opinion if we have a knowledge about something. For example, if somebody says us, this is right and this is wrong, if we don't have the knowledge about that situation, what we will do? The normal reaction. We will keep quiet. We will say that maybe that person knows what is happening, so he or she may be right. We should understand, or we should accept whatever he is saying. But in the case two, in the scenario two, if we actually understand that, or we have a little bit knowledge about that particular thing that is happening, and if a person comes up and says, no, this is wrong, what will happen? Now our reaction will change. If we have the knowledge and we think that what is happening is right, we can question that, no, whatever is happening it was correct. It is not wrong. So that is how it changed. It helps us to see certain things in different perspective rather than the way it is being shown to us. We don't depend upon others to interpret things or to understand things. We can do it by having a good amount of knowledge about that particular topic. Reading is important because words spoken and written are the building blocks of life. Reading is the way that we we transfer or let do the exchange of knowledge from one person to the another, or we can gain or acquire more and more knowledge. So it is really important, because whatever we speak and whatever we read, whatever the things are written, that is the only thing that will help us to have a good personality, or help us become a better person. It is a building block of life. It will determine what will become in future. So that is why reading is very important in our life. It helps us to have our own opinion about the topics. We have discussed about this a lot, so I'll not go in detail. It helps us to have our own opinion about whatever topic we are talking, because we have more knowledge about that topic if we read more. Through reading, we can learn from the lives and the struggle of other people. It is from the reading that we don't have to go through the struggle to understand the struggle better. If we take up on the biographies or autobiographies of the legends, so in those, when we go through that, we can learn through their struggles as well, how they have gone through, what kind of adverse situations they have faced, how were their life, how they coped up with it, how they became the legend that they are today. That also helps. That also means it helps us to learn different things with the life of others, the struggles of others, because we can take their life history and we can read it out, we can understand, and it will also be proved as a motivation that if that person being such a legend has to go through so many struggles, then why will we give up? It will help us to be motivated or not, and not to give up on any adverse situation. Reading is an exercise of brain muscles, which our brain needs, just like a body needs exercise. I've been saying it time and again. Reading is a certain kind of an exercise that proves to be an exercise for our brain muscles, and just as our body needs exercise to function in a best way possible, reading is that function that will help us to exercise our brain muscles, and it will keep our brain in a better it will help us to have a healthy brain, and it will help us to have a good reading sessions. That is what reading does. So now I would like you to introduce a video to you that will show you just the thing that why is reading important in the first place.
I have been looking for you, Bunty, and you are sitting here alone. Oh, sorry, with your friend.
I know you're teasing me, but it's okay. It's just because you don't know the pleasure a book can give.
Hey, you promised to share more about the importance of reading. Tell me, I am waiting.
Reading is vital because it is how we discover new things. We live in an age where we overflow with information, and with reading, we can educate ourselves in any area of life we are interested in. Reading develops imagination. With reading, a person can go anywhere in the world or even out of it. Non-readers can never experience these joys.
Amazing, Bunty. What are the other benefits of reading?
You might be knowing that reading helps in building one's vocabulary. But do you know that through reading, you build a more solid foundation for communication? When you read, you understand more, and thus you can communicate better with people. Whereas if you don't read, you can't connect with the world.
Now I can understand how important reading is.
Good, you understood that. And one more thing. Many well-paying companies hire people who have good reading and comprehension skills because they believe that they perform well.
Thank you so much, Bunty. You really are a whiz. You have enlightened me.
So that was the video showing what was the importance of reading and why we require reading in our day-to-day life. Now, main reading difficulties. What are the main reading difficulties? The first problem being dyslexia. Although dyslexia typically affects spelling, writing, including transposing letters and words, it can also contribute to reading comprehension problems. When a student has this type of learning disorder, he or she usually has a problem with letters and word recognition, as well as difficulties pronouncing words. It also contributes to the slow reading speed. Students who have these issues may have problems with overall reading comprehensions because there can be so many roadblocks that overall meaning of the word becomes indescribable. So what dyslexia is? There are cases, there are students who will find it difficult to understand the letters, leave alone the word and sentences. They will find it difficult when we say if we say the letter M. Now, when I'm saying the letter M, a picturization formed in your mind, right? Okay, then that she's talking about this particular letter. But these students, they find it difficult to interpret what the letter means. Then if they finally are able to interpret that letter, they will find it difficult to interpret it with the entire sentence. For example, if I associate that M with mother, M-O-T-H-E-R. So now they have to interpret that M, okay, M is M, O is O, sounds as O, T sounds as T. So they will find it difficult then to let the entire word come together and understand what mother means. Then if we have to understand that particular word in the entire sentence, it is a whole lot of process for them, a person who is suffering from this particular disease. And till he reaches the last step of understanding the entire sentence, he forgets what he was talking about in the first place, because it becomes very exhausting for that particular student. I will make it a little bit more easier for you to understand. You must remember the student at Bollywood sometimes teaches us good things, right? So if you remember Ishan of Tare Zameen Par, he was a student who was facing this particular disease. So if you will remember the way that the director has shown that what are the symptoms or how the student feel who is suffering from this particular disease. So when he was trying to read, what used to happen? It used to appear that the letters were floating and the letters used to float and he was not able to interpret. And when he used to do that, because the other who were present there in the class, the other student as well as the teacher, was not aware that this person is not joking or fooling around. He's genuinely going through certain something. So because of that, they used to think and scold him that why are you doing this? Why are you not reading properly? Why are you trying to make fun in the class? So that is when that used to happen, the self-esteem of this little boy used to get affected. And rather than sharing the problem with the class, rather than thinking that the class will understand him, he used to be outrageous and he used to shout and he used to create a commotion in the class, due to which he was mostly he was punished and was sent out of the class. So it was not entirely the fault of the student. The fault lied in the problem that the students, his friends, as well as the teachers, was not ready to understand that maybe he was facing something difficulty that we people are not facing usually. So we will not, he will find it, he will read it rather slow. He will find it rather difficult to understand things that we normally do it very easily. So that is what the first reading difficulty is. The second one, remedial vocabulary. Many students with reading comprehension problems have trouble with vocabulary and may fall behind the peers. They typically perform poorly on vocabulary tests as well as standardized tests. These shortcomings may affect a student's self-esteem and him are prone to avoiding speaking aloud in the classroom in front of other students and teachers. So remedial vocabulary. This is the problem where when we, like I said earlier also, when we are reading something, we come across a certain difficult word. We go through the process of understanding it and understanding the entire sentence, keeping it in our mind, and then next time try to use it in our day-to-day life so that we are now well acquainted with that word. But there are students or there are people who has this remedial vocabulary problem. So if you are facing this problem, even however hard you try, you will find it more difficult to keep that vocabulary with yourself for a longer duration of time. And because of that, you will fall behind. If you are inside a class, your peers or your friends who are there in the class, obviously they will do better because they don't have this particular problem. Only you are facing that. And when all the time you are said or you see it through the test and everything that we are feeling left behind, the confidence of a person is affected, the self-esteem of a person is affected. And these students, rather than trying to cope up with the situation or trying to work harder, because their self confidence has been affected to such a level that rather than taking chances to speak again in the class, putting their hands up that ma'am I want to say, they will try to escape. They will try to put their lay low in the class and be like that only, so that they can escape from saying anything in the class, because they don't know how to understand certain things. That is where the problem lies. Memory problem. Short-term and long-term memory problem can be another aspects of reading comprehension issues. When a student doesn't fully understand what he or she just read, the student will have difficulties remembering the information. Teachers can identify students with memory problem before the issue gets out of the hand by using pop quizzes and mini tests after reading session. So, if we have a student has this memory problem, be it short term or be it long term, if they have this issue, they will find it difficult to read, because they cannot connect the dots, because whatever they read earlier, they have already forgotten it. Because memory problem, they cannot retain it for a longer duration of time. So they don't have that liberty to connect the contents that they are reading right now with the contents that they have already studied. So they will have a difficulty as compared to all the other rest of the students who don't have this memory problem. And we as a teachers, we can strike this, or we can point out or individualize the students who are actually going through this problem by taking tests. If we have taken certain tests, be it pop quiz or mini little test, reading section test, whatever, and we see that a certain number of students have performed bad, there can be two scenarios. The first one, that either the students have genuinely not studied and they are fooling around, or secondly, they genuinely are facing certain problems. So in order to rule out the first problem, we will have to give them the task of, or we have to work hard with them to make sure that this time when we take another test, then they are coming well prepared. And if we make sure that this time whatever work was given to them, they have done it, and then we are taking the test. So whatever students now also are not able to perform, the thing of carelessness has been ruled out. Now we know that these students are not careless because we have worked behind them, and we know that they have worked hard for it, but they're not able to retain it for a longer duration of time. Now we know that, okay, these are the individual students who are facing this problem, and now we can work upon those students to make sure that they can rule out with these problems as well. Omission of words. Some students with reading comprehension problems omit words when reading aloud or writing. This tendency could be a sign of other disorders such as dyslexia or vision problem. When teachers see repeated behavior of this nature and carelessness have been ruled out, other reading comprehension tests should usually be administered. So when we will ask our students to read, sometimes we do that, we have that reading session in the class, right? That when we ask our students that, okay, today you read, today you will read the passage, and then we will explain the entire content. So when the students are doing that, at times we notice that they just skip certain words and then move forward. Again, there can be two cases. Either they are really careless and they just are giving it a go and they don't think about what they are reading, or there can be second case that they genuinely have not seen that word only. The mind has only blocked that word for them and they did not see the word, and that is why they have omitted that word. So for that, only one thing can be done. In the next reading session, when we have that reading session, we can keep those students in mind that, okay, last time in that reading session, these were the students who faced that problem. Now we are going to make sure that whether they are going through the same problem this time or not. If the same thing happens twice, then the carelessness point have been ruled out. that, okay, they are not careless. They are seriously going through certain something. So for that purpose, we'll have to work on that basis and by individualizing them, that, okay, we'll have to work with the students separately. That is what it can be a difficulty or a problem when we have the omission of words. ADD, attention deficit disorder. A student with ADD may be at risk of having reading comprehension problem because of an inability to concentrate on material for long periods of time. Children affected by ADD typically have short attention spans and have problems not only grasping the meaning of the paragraph or short story, but also comprehending a sentence. We, as the teachers, have been going through this a lot. When we try to gain the attention of the class, when we try to gain the attention of our students, most of the time we will see that they are not attentive at all. So there also can be the two-case scenario. That is, first of all, they really are the one who is fooling around and they don't want to study. Or the second one, that they are suffering from this ADD, where they have that problem where they cannot concentrate on something for a longer period of time. Their concentration, even if they are trying to concentrate, their concentration breaks off very easily. And whoever are the children who are facing through or who are going through this ADD problem, they will find it difficult grasping things because they were not attentive when things were being taught, or they were not attentive when they were reading the stuff. So they will not be able to retain things for a longer duration of time. They will not be able to understand, comprehend things for a longer duration of time. And that helps, that becomes a difficulty in comprehending the entire sentence. Decoding difficulties. These are the characteristics that will show you that a person is suffering from the decoding difficulties. We have understood what decoding was in the earlier only. So now we'll go through the characteristics that will tell us that the student is facing a decoding difficulties. Consistent difficulty sounding out words and recognizing words out of the context. If the student have consistently cannot recognize what how the words are pronounced, or what are the words in which context they are used, then we can be sure that, okay, this student is facing this decoding difficulty. Confusion between letter and the sound they represent. We have discussed this earlier. If the student cannot differentiate, if, for example, if I'm saying M, and they instead of picturizing M for mother, if they picturize N, so there is a problem. They cannot decode what the letters are for which which sound is associated with which letter. So that is one of the decoding difficulties. Slow reading rate when reading aloud. Obviously, when a student cannot understand that which letter goes with which sound, he or she will face problem in reading the sentence. They cannot read the sentence in a speed, in one go, like we do. They will slowly go through the sentence so that they can slowly interpret the letters and they can read it aloud. Reading without expression. So when the students goes through this decoding difficulties, they are facing a certain difficulty. That means they cannot understand what the letters are. So when we are not understanding the letters, it will be very difficult for us to understand the word. If we are not understanding the word, it will be difficult to understand the entire sentence. So when we are facing difficulties in understanding only, it is very hard for us to show the expression of the things that we are reading. And if we are a good reader or we love reading, we know how important expressions are. Expression determine that in which context the certain sentence is being said or used. So if the person is facing this decoding difficulty, he will be reading without expression. He will have no expression on his or her face. Ignoring punctuation while reading. The things that goes on in their mind, beginning with the letters and words, recognition and everything. Obviously that or little punctuation marks, that small pause in commas or a longer pause in semicolons and the full stop, that will be omitted. They cannot keep a track of what punctuations are used and for what purposes they are used. So they will ignore the punctuation while reading. They will just go on on their own pace. Comprehension difficulties. Confusion about the meaning of the word and the sentence. As we know, comprehension is related to the understanding that we have of certain thing. So if we have comprehension difficulties, we will have problem in understanding the meaning of the words in the sentence. Inability to connect ideas in the passage. Already the idea that we have, we will not be able to connect it with the passage that we are reading right now. Omission of glossing over details. If we don't know how to understand something, we will not understand which is the important part and which are the less important part. So rather than leaving out the less important part, maybe it is possible that we will leave or omit the major details that was necessary and that should have been read. Difficulty distinguishing the significant information from the minor details. The same thing, we will have difficulty to understand which one is the main details and which one is the slightly not more significant one. Which are the more significant one. We'll have a difficulty in differentiating between both of them. Lack of concentration during reading. In order to have a concentration, it is very essential that we understand something. When we understand, we take an interest in it. And when we take an interest, our concentration does not go anywhere else. So if a person cannot understand what he's reading, it is very likely that their concentration will be, there will be a lack of concentration. Retention difficulties. Trouble remembering or summarizing what is read. When we have retention difficulties, obviously we cannot retain it for a lot amount of time. So we will not be able to remember what we have read. And and all the students who are suffering from these problems, or all the people who are rather suffering from this problem, if you tell them something or if you teach them something, and at the very end, if you ask them to summarize this or conclude that what we have done the entire session, what was all about, then they will find it very difficult. They will not be able to do it because their retention power is low. They cannot remember what has been taught right now. Difficulty connecting what is read to the prior knowledge. Because we have a retention problem, memory problem, we cannot retain it for a longer duration of time. So if we do have forgotten what we knew about this topic earlier, obviously we cannot connect what we are reading right now from the prior knowledge that we already had. So we will have the difficulty in connecting both the knowledges that we are getting right now or the prior knowledge that we already had. Difficulty applying content of a text to personal experience. First of all, we are not able to retain what was there. We are finding it difficult to keep it in our mind only. So we cannot relate it or associate it with the day-to-day life experience. And when we are not able to do that, that will be a problem. Inability to view content from multiple perspectives. If we cannot retain something, we cannot think about it later. And when we cannot think about it later, we will find it difficult to think in different perspectives. What are the reading strategies that can be used in order to have a good reading experience? Play word games. We can ask our student to have a good word session. I remember we used to have that word game when we were in our schools, kind of a memory game where one student used to say a certain word. Like, for example, if I say man, the next one has to repeat the first letter and say their own new words. So, for example, the second one will say man, woman. And the third one will say man, woman, child. So that is kind of a memory game. It helps you to enhance your memory power. And there are many more word games related, and we can use that with the children to have a fun session in the class and also teach them something so that they can learn something new. Read aloud every day. The more we read aloud, the more good we will feel good. Our pronunciation skills will develop, our vocabulary will develop, and overall reading experience will be better one. Model reading as an enjoyable activity. If we want to have the best experience as a reading, we have to enjoy the activity. Whichever activity, if you are enjoying it, it is very likely that we will be able to motivate to do it again and again. Because according to our mind, it was a fun activity. We will want to do it again. Put learning to use. Whatever we have learned by reading, it is very essential that we put it to use. When we do that, next time we are motivated to learn even more. Read to your child every day. Make it a habit that we have a good nighttime reading session and we read to our child every day. Engage children's senses while reading. Ways to improve reading comprehension. The first one can be mumbling. Then the underlining the keywords of the reading. When we underline it, the important parts. Start the conclusion. We can start that fun activity of them concluding. Kinesthetic reading, that means we can involve the students in the activities so that they are more motivated to read. Reading on a walk. stopping at the predetermined reflection points. If we start on the predetermined reflection points and we reflect on the topics, that will help us to have a better experience of reading. Visualizing yourself as a reader, when we can think about ourselves as a reader, that is also a good way. Reading inductively or deductively. We are having a set rules, or without having the set rules, we can do it in either way. The special reading place, this is a very good one. We can have our own special reading place, having a little bit of a greenery around, music of a river flowing. That special place will, whenever we'll go near it, it will motivate us to read more. Reading aloud to someone reading aloud to you, skimming or reading, underlining the important points and going through only the important points rather than the entire content. Marginal notes, taking with the text, annotation of text, when we add different text or comment to, so that we can come back and see why was that particular text important and why we have underlined it. A reward, we can keep a reward. Obviously, whenever we have a reward, we are more motivated. Hearing the text inside our head. If we keep hearing the text that inside our head all the time. Points to remember. Treatment must be based on the understanding of the children's instructional needs, what the children actually require. The treatment should be given according to that only. Remedial program must be highly individualized. It should be according to the one particular student. We have to understand his problem and then give them the remedial program. It should not be generalized for everybody. The same program should not be given. Remedial instructions must be organized instruction. It should be a set of organized instruction rather than just superficial points. Consideration of child's principal worth is necessary. The child is the most prominent one. The reading processes must be made meaningful to the learner. It should prove to be beneficial for the learner. The reading program must be encouraging to child. It should be encouraging. Materials and exercise must be suitable to child's reading ability and instructional need. What the child actually needs, the material should be according to that only. Sound teaching procedure must be employed. A carefully designed follow-up program is necessary. A follow-up program that why it was important is also necessary. Role of a teacher in strengthening reading competency of a child. Reading is something that was always there in the education system. It is the job of a teacher to make the student realize the importance of reading, why it is essential, and what a difference it can make in their life. Maybe through the life of a great people, how reading changed their life, it could not have been done without anything else. Like, for example, I was going through a lot of interviews. I went through the interview of Bill Gates, where he was saying how reading is an integral part of his life and how it has changed his life and made him what he is today. So all these life examples can actually motivate the students to read more. Motivate the students through reading competition. Competitions can be held, giving real life example to show the life transforming chances of reading, such as I gave right now, Bill Gates. Giving each student suggestions about the book to read rather than the vague one, just read, point out the main important books that they should read. Make the parents aware about the benefits of reading, held the seminars, make the parents aware why reading is important so that the child is also aware of that. Diagnose each student's reading skills to ascertain the grade level of the material that the student read. According to the student, the material should be assigned to them. Diagnose each student's reading skills to determine from the total list of skills which specific list has been mastered. A checkout list can be made where we can tick out that, okay, these skills the students have mastered. Now we can move on to the next one. Be aware of the reading demands and teaching strategies of the content area so that the skills can be highlighted and reinforced. Provide instructions in these skills at the appropriate level of difficulties. Whenever the child faces the difficulties, we should provide the appropriate instructions on that particular level of difficulties only. Now, I would like to, when I was going through different reading processes, I came across a beautiful story that will enhance you the importance of reading, how reading can be change in somebody's life and how it can bring an entire 360 turn in somebody's life. So this is a story about a little girl who was living in an Orthodox society where art was not respected that much, where art was not given that much importance. And she was just like a regular student that we have in our schools day to day that we see normally. But the only difference being was she was really a person who loves to read. So whenever she used to get a free time, she used to go to the library, she used to read, and she used to pass on the time. So one day when she had a free time, she went to the library. She was searching through the different shelves to take out the next book that she can go through. And when she was doing that, she saw that there was a book on the shelf, a little bit dusty, that somebody must have not used most of the time. So she was kind of curious that why this book was left out and nobody was going through it. So she took out that book and she saw that it was a biography of this famous legend, Anna Pavlova, and she was a famous ballerina. So knowing that her family does not support art, first of all, she was reluctant to open the book, but at the very end, she decided to go through it. And as she was at the very first, she was not that interested, but as she was going on with the pages and pages, she slowly and gradually became interested in the story. And suddenly the bell rang. She knew that it was the time to go home. So she issued the book. She went to the librarian, requested him that I want this book. She took the book and went home. She was so eager to read this book because her curiosity level have risen to a certain extent. So she was so eager to read this book that for the time being, she has forgotten all entirely that her family does not support art. So she just took out that book in front of in the hall that she was sitting, and she started reading it. Her mother started coming towards her. At first, she thought that she's reading something, but when she came closer, she saw that she's reading. She's reading about a ballet dance form, ballet. So she got very angry. She started scolding her daughter that why are you reading about art? Are you interested in it? We are never going to allow you. You are never going to pursue this particular dance form. So hearing the words of her mother, she understood that maybe she should not go any further. She took the book, went to her room, locked the book inside the drawer, and she was trying to engage her mind in different things. But the thought of, when we are reading something and we don't reach the end of it, that curiosity level does not dies out easily. So the same thing happened for her. So she decided to close the door and she again went back reading the book. When she reached the end of the book, she was not aware that how this dance from ballet has grown on to her, and now it was very important for her. She has been so inspired by Anna Pavlova that she could not give up on this particular dream. Now her next goal was to make her parents realize the importance or show them why this dance form should be respected. So she went to the library the next day. She took out all the books related to this dance form because she cannot relate or she cannot depend upon any other source of information rather than this one. So she was going through, she used to sit down, close her door of the room and go through the dance form and practice that dance form, the steps by reading it, going through that book, working very hard. And one day the opportunity knocked her door when there was an annual day competition in her school where she knew that her parents would be sitting in the audience. So she worked she gave her blood and sweat to organize this entire performance. And she gave it a go. And she was selected by the judges. The audition round was cleared. And she was one of the participants of the that particular content. When she was selected, she went through the entire books again and again to make sure that whatever she has learned retains in her mind. And when on the day of the performance, earlier she was a little bit nervous, but when her name was called out, she went on the stage and she gave it her all 100%. When she stopped to see that what are the reactions of a performance, she was in cloud nine to see how vigorously the audience were clapping, including her parents. Her parents were clapping like anything. And she knew that her goal has been achieved. She was able to make sure that her parents can see the passion in her eyes and let her go through this career option. But little did she knew that the entire audience, that one person was there who was the owner of a famous ballet school, who came forward and gave her the scholarship and her parents the scholarship that she can move on forward with the dance form, which her parents gladly accepted, and she went to the famous school of ballet in London. So this is how by reading she was able to change her the entire life. Now I would like you to see the same experience through one of the videos and see the importance of reading.
Christopher Luna.
Congratulations, Christopher. I'm so proud of you.
Well,
It's an honor to meet you.
It's a pleasure to meet you.
Your book is my daughter's absolute favorite.
I love that.
In today's world, with the growth of technology, the students are more inclined on watching television, online, or playing games. If we can motivate them to read books, that we can create a better tomorrow. We can help in creating the next generation, which is full of knowledge and has their own opinion, which can differentiate between right and wrong, can make correct decision, and can bring a positive change in the world in the future. If we want a better leaders tomorrow, we have to make sure that today we have a great learners, readers. So let on move on to the questions. What is the characteristics of cognitive view of reading? What is the translating a printed word into a sound known as? A, comprehensive, B, encoding, C, decoding, and D, retention.
ऑनलाइन पार्टिसिपेंट पे यहाँ पर क्लिक करिए, यहाँ पे वो आंसर देगा, ठीक है ना, इसका नाम बताइए। ठीक है, कट गया, ऐसे कैसे बोलोगे? मैं आपको नहीं बताना, ये था ना आपका, ठीक है, चलिए।
Anand Public Schools, C, D, Columbia English Academy, decoding, St. Paul's Academy, C. Yes, it is C, decoding. What is the characteristics of cognitive view of reading? First, it is a passive activity. B, it is a dynamic activity. C, no control over comprehending a text. D, both A and C. St. Paul's Academy, B. New Era Public School, Munger, C. Happy Valley School, Bhagalpur, option B. Kumar Prince, B. Diksha International, C. New Horizon School, B. Yes, it is B. It is a dynamic activity. Next question. Which of the following is not a factor influencing acquisition of reading ability? A, auditory discrimination. B, visual discrimination. C, motor ocular discrimination. D, astrogenesis. St. Paul's Academy D. Saurav Kumar STNC D. Diksha International D. Kumar Prince D. New Horizon D. Happy Valley D. Yes, it is D. Astrogenesis. Next question. What is it called when one has a problem with a letter or word recognition? First, option A, retention difficulties. B, ADD. C, dyslexia. D, remedial vocabulary. New Era Republic School C, Diksha International C, Anand C, Happy Valley School Bhagalpur C, Kumar Prince C, New Horizon School C, Saurav Kumar C, St. Paul's Academy C, and yes, the answer is C. Next question, what was the name of the famous ballerina? A, Anna Bassel, B, Anna Pavlova, C, Darcy Dowell, D, Dinah Bassel. New Horizon B, Diksha International School C, St. Paul's Academy B, St. Paul's Diksha International C, Columbia English School Academy B, New Era Public School Munger B, Kumar Prince B, Anand Public School B, Ravi Prakash B, Happy Valley School C, and the option is New Horizon School B. And yes, the option is B, Anna Pavlova. Thank you. That was a wonderful session. By reading the writing of the most interesting minds in the history, we meditate with our own minds and there as well. And to me, that is a miracle. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, Miss Risha. सेशन में थोड़ा सा हम लोगों को लेट हुआ. मैंने अपने रिसोर्स पर्सन के सेंटीमेंट को समझते हुए थोड़ा सा टाइम को उनको दिया, एलोंगेट कर दिया. कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, हम लोग टीचर्स हैं, कभी ऐसे ही होता, कभी कम कभी ज्यादा होता है. ओके, सो again we will gather here with a new session in coming new year. So for that time, happy new year, happy coming new year to all. Thank you.